through. And I remember getting to Ecclesiastes, as this was just weighing on my heart. And when I read through Ecclesiastes for the first time, I'd never read it before, I got into it, and it felt like the author was like reading my mind. As I was working through the book of Ecclesiastes, it was like all of the things that I was wrestling with, all of these big questions, all of these big, heavy things that were weighing on me, I was reading about in the book of Ecclesiastes. And as you get into it, and maybe you've never read Ecclesiastes before, or maybe you've read it, but maybe you didn't quite get it, or you just didn't relate to it, I'll have you know, and if you know me at all, it is my favorite book. From the time I was 25 years old and on, when I read it that first time, I was like, this is me. This is what's brought me to the Lord, just to this close relationship that I have with the Lord now. It's because of my search for meaning and purpose, and I just so related to the text of Ecclesiastes. So it's my favorite book. I've been really looking forward to going through it with all of you. And so tonight, I want to launch our series on the book of Ecclesiastes. So one of your handouts says survey and outline at the top. And so whenever I start a new book series, I like to just go over real quick some overview material so all of us are on the same page. I've got the study outline off to the left. And so if you want to be a part of this whole series, you'll see I've got 27 weeks laid out for us here. We're going to start today in week 1. If you get into the text, verse 1 of chapter 1 says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. It gives us some big clues as to who wrote this book, because one of the things we always like to know is who wrote this? Who is the author? And as we're getting into Ecclesiastes, it's pretty clear to see right off the bat that it was King Solomon. And ever since our spiritual forefathers, for thousands of years now, it's been widely accepted that King Solomon was the author of Ecclesiastes. In fact, it wasn't until more recently, the past couple hundred years, that people started introducing different ideas as to who may have written it. But there are many clues in the text that lead to it being King Solomon, even though he doesn't directly identify himself. As you just read, as we see in verse 1, he says that the author is the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now, if you remember that after Solomon passed on and his son Rehoboam became king, he pretty quickly split the kingdom into two, northern kingdom, southern kingdom. So Solomon is the only descendant of David that actually ruled over all of Israel. And he even says later in chapter 1 that he was king over Israel in Jerusalem. So there's some big identifiers, there's some big clues that this is King Solomon who wrote this. And because it was King Solomon, we can pretty quickly narrow down when this book was written. King Solomon reigned from 971 BC to 931 BC. And this book was written near the end of his life. This is, if you've read through it, you know this is written by an elderly man looking over his life. This is Solomon near the end of his time, and he's looking over his whole life, reminiscing and reflecting just deeply over this big nagging question that he's had. And because we know that it was written near the end of his life, 935 BC is most commonly accepted as its rough date of origin. Now, if you have read through the book of Ecclesiastes and you're like, I hate this book, I don't understand this book, or it's super depressing, who's there? Who's like, this book is so depressing? You guys have been there before? Okay, a few of you, that's all right. It's okay. Some of you are like, why? Why is this even in the text? Why is this in the biblical canon? The book really has a twofold purpose. One, this is more my take on it. I don't know that you would find this so much in a lot of scholarly works, but as you read through it, I think it's pretty clear that one of the reasons this book was written is that Solomon uses it as a lament for his many years of chasing meaning in all the wrong places. So as he's nearing the end of his life, he's looking at the sunset of his life. He's reflecting on how he did so many things frivolously. He did so many things wrong and in the search for meaning. And I have here on your survey, it says, I wrote that one can hear heartache and frustration in his voice as he describes all the time he's lost in the futile pursuit of fulfillment. So he can't turn back time and redo his life himself. But the second part of the purpose of this book is he can help his audience, us, avoid the same pitfalls that he fell into. And so one of the main purposes of this book is to point out the true meaning and purpose of life so that folks like us can avoid all of the traps and snares that Solomon fell into. Ecclesiastes, at its heart, is a book that deals with the biggest question in life. What is it all about? What's the point? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. What's the point? And if I had to summarize Ecclesiastes to one sentence, it would be that. What's the point? And as we get into chapter 1, verses 1 through 11 tonight, that's the passage we're going to review, you'll see that right away it does take a bit of a depressing tone. Now, really, the first 11 chapters of this 12-chapter book, you say, well, that's not very much. Almost the whole book is kind of depressing. You have to have chapter 12 to understand where Solomon is coming from. You have to have chapter 12, and I'm going to get into it. Actually, it's the last couple verses of the whole thing. They are the key to unlocking the hope of it all. So Solomon takes the first 11 chapters to really wrestle with and deal with all of these issues in life that he's seen. And you'll see some common phrases: vanity upon vanity, life under the sun, like chasing the wind. You'll see some of these common phrases that he uses throughout the book. At the end of the book, he gives us the key. So maybe you're here tonight and you've been wrestling with, what is my purpose? What is the point of it all? Well, I hope tonight will be a little bit encouraging for you. And I hope that as we work through the whole series on Ecclesiastes, that will be filled with encouragement. Not that we'll get depressed or dreary through our time in Ecclesiastes, but that will be filled with hope because, my friends, there is purpose and meaning in life, and there is for every single one of us. The key is here. But let's dive into the text, if you would, with me, starting in verse 1. It says, "The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." See, it starts off really nicely. All is vanity. Verse 3, "What does man gain from the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the sun remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around it goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. The streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be. What has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun." Do you see where I get my subheading for our series? Finding purpose in life under the sun. Here he sets up this issue. He says, there's nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, "See, this is new"? It's already in the ages before us. There's no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things, yet to be among those who come after. So that's it. Have a good night, guys. Be encouraged. Doesn't he just seem like a joy to be around at this point in his life? Just imagine sitting with King Solomon as he's just pondering all these things. What's been the point of it all? Is essentially what he's saying. As we continue to move through the text, you're going to see many of these questions come back to the surface again. This is an old man at the end of his life, looking over his life in the rearview mirror, looking at the prime of his life is gone by. All of his accomplishments, all of the things that he's done, all of the wealth, all of the power, everything he's had. And he's asking this question, what's the point? What's the point? Because when he passes, he doesn't take any of it with him. When he passes, what good does it do him then? And my friends, if you've never asked yourself that question exactly that way, I'm sure you've asked yourself that question in some way, shape, or form. And if you haven't yet, you probably are now. This book so touched me because that's the very question I was wrestling with. What is the point? Tonight I want to deal with that just a little bit as we work through the text. I've got an outline of the first 11 verses, and you see verse 1 is just the introduction. He's, again, he's identifying himself. And as soon as King Solomon introduces himself as the author, he immediately turns his attention to one of the biggest questions plaguing humanity since the beginning. What is the meaning of life? What is our purpose? Now, he poses it with this big question. And so this really is the frame for the rest of the book, these first two verses. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. He's asking here, is there any true meaning in life? Is it all just frivolous? Does anything we do have true value, true meaning? Any of the work you've done in your life? Any of the toil, the blood, sweat, and tears that you've poured into things, is there any true value to it? That's what he's asking here. Or is it just for vanity's sake? Do we just do it to make ourselves feel good? And he follows up in verse 3, what does man gain by the toil at which he toils under the sun? Is there any permanent virtue in the things we spend the majority of our time on? If you don't realize this, if you haven't realized this yet, you will spend the vast majority of your life working. You will spend more time of your life working than you will doing anything else. Some of you are like, I think I did that today. This week I've spent more time of my life than I will on anything else. It's work. I don't know, I think about this sometimes. I will probably spend more time with my coworkers than I will with my own family. Pam is like, oh no. It's what we do in life. We work. Is there any permanent virtue to this thing that we spend the vast majority of our time on? Is there virtue in spending our toil, our energy on all this work, whatever we put our hands to? It all has to be redone tomorrow. This is something that hits a young pastor as they get their first pastorate. They realize right away, as soon as they're done preaching, the next Sunday is only 6 days away. There's another sermon to be preached. As soon as I'm done with you all tonight, I will start writing my next sermon tomorrow morning. There's another sermon tomorrow. We spend all this time doing things. Is there any virtue in it? Is there any value in it? This is one of the big questions he's posing to us here. Does a man gain anything from all his toil? It's work. This is the big question that he aims to answer through this text. Now, as we get further along in the book, you'll see what Solomon means by this toil, this work under the sun. He will go into great detail about the things that he's done and the accomplishments that he's achieved. But all of us will spend time working. And if you've ever had a mundane job or had a few moments to yourself where your mind has wandered, you've probably had that thought go through your mind. I'm going to have to do this exact same thing tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. Is there any point to this? I remember when I started working full-time as a teenager, and I thought to myself, how many days of my life will I spend standing in this one spot? You know, when I was a cashier or working on the line at Subway or whatever I was doing. How many years of my life will I spend sitting in that chair behind that desk? It's like, do we gain anything? This is what's going through Solomon's mind. Verses 4 through 8, he has a bit of a humbling realization. So he's asking this question. Now it's sort of like setting in. You can hear his thoughts. You can see the gears kind of turning. Look at verse 4. It says, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. See, life is fleeting. We come and go. James says that our life is like a vapor in the wind. This is a very humbling thing when we become mature in life to realize this. See, when we're young, we think, what? We think the universe revolves around us, don't we? Some of you have kids that you're trying to wake them up right now and say, hey, the world does not revolve around you. Some of your kids, you wish they were sitting in the sermon right now. It's a very humbling realization. Life is fleeting. But creation, it's forever. Even when this world passes on, and Scripture says that the Lord brings in a new heaven and a new earth. Ultimately, what Solomon is pointing out to here is that we come and go, generation after generation will make its mark on this world. But ultimately, as they pass on, as you and I pass on, the world keeps spinning. It doesn't rest on our shoulders. The universe does not revolve around you. Things continue to function long after you're gone. That's true at your job. You know, some of you will spend 40, 50 years working for the same company, and you'd like to think that that company is really going to have a hard time when you're not there. I'm sorry to tell you that the day you leave, they hire someone else, and that company keeps on chugging along. You know, when I'm not the pastor of this church anymore, you'll have a different pastor. I was talking to a retired pastor one time, and he's like, it's amazing how quickly they forget about you. And it's kind of sad, but at the same time, it's just the nature of life. The world doesn't revolve around us. It keeps on moving. Life keeps going on. Verse 7, he says, all streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. He says, your eyes never stop seeing. They're never satisfied. Your ears are never filled with hearing. It's another humbling realization. We're always striving, but we're never satisfied. We're always striving for more. We're always working. We're always toiling. We're always pressing on. And like the water that flows into the ocean, but the ocean never is full, so are our desires. We always want to see more. We always want to experience more. We always want to hear more. Our eyes are never full. Our ears are never full. My stomach is never full, let me tell you. I haven't told you guys yet. I fasted 3 days last week, and I almost died. I never want to do that ever again. The Scripture says that we ought not complain when we're fasting so nobody knows. My wife knew I was fasting because I told her all the time. She left to go shopping one time with the boys when I was fasting. I was laying on the couch because I didn't feel good. And I said, Sarah, if I don't see you again. I did the best I could. I tried to be a good husband. I got zero sympathy. I don't know. We're never satisfied. We're always striving. It's humbling to realize this. No matter how much we gain, we want more. No matter how big our bank account is, we could always use one more dollar. No matter how many friends, we want more. No matter how much we've achieved at work, there's another rung on the ladder. We desire more and more and more. We're not satisfied. You see him laying that out there. Verses 9 through 11. You see this just feeling of futility sort of set in on him. Look at what he says in verse 9. What has been done is what has been is what will be. You see, this is again where he's just like, what's the good? What's the use? What has been done is what will be done. And if there's nothing new there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It's been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of the former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. Just real quick. Sometimes things in our lives feel futile. You feel like you're just ramming your head against a wall. You feel like you're making no progress. You feel like even if you do make progress, there's just going to be more stuff to do the next day. You look at your house and you think, as soon as I get it clean, it's going to get messy again. You look at your work, as soon as I get this pile of paperwork filed, there's going to be a new pile tomorrow. It can feel very daunting, very futile. And Solomon is pointing out that people keep learning, but they continually fall into the same old traps. See, because our desires are never satisfied, we're always pressing on for more, and generation after generation, we see humanity making the same mistakes that they've always made. You would think we'd learn. We have the benefit of hindsight. We can learn from the generations before us. We can learn from Solomon, and yet you and I are going to make so many of the exact same mistakes that he made. And he's telling us not to. It's the same over and over. He's making that observation here. What has been is what will be. What has been done is what will be done. People don't learn. They keep learning, but they don't learn. They keep falling into the same traps, the same snares. The history keeps repeating itself, but it's constantly forgotten. Nation after nation continues to fall, falling into the same issues and problems that nations before have fallen into. Your family will have the same problems that families in your family tree have had for generations. Why? Because history seems to just keep repeating itself. We forget. And he's observing this. He's seen it. He's seen it in his own life and now in his son's lives. And it can feel so futile. And if we were to stop there tonight, it'd be really depressing. But Solomon doesn't stop there. We can't go through the whole book of Ecclesiastes, but I do want to give you guys the key in our first week together. If you have your Bibles, you can just jump back to chapter 12. I have it on your handout here because he gives us the answer to it all. So he posed the big question. He goes through a humbling realization. He has this feeling of futility setting in, but he does now give us the answer to it all in chapter 12, verses 13 through 14. And I will continually bring us back to this week after week because, my friends, this is the key that unlocks the hope in every one of the problems that Solomon will present us with. These two verses are the key to unlocking hope and purpose in each and every one of our lives. See, here's what Solomon says at the end of this book. It says, the end of the matter, all has been heard, fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. Here's the key. Here's the point of it all. Yes, all of these observations he's made, they're true. Things continue to, life is cyclical in so many ways. But there is purpose in it all. There's meaning in it all. There's purpose because the Lord has seen fit to put us here. Your life is not empty and hollow. You are not here by happenstance. You are not an accident that the universe just happened to create. The Lord has placed you in this time. The Lord has placed you in this place. You were put here by God. That alone provides immense meaning in life. To know that he planned for you at this time. We are here at the pleasure and for the glory of God. And that should be a thread of purpose in everything you do the rest of your life. I shuffle those papers at work for the glory of God. I build that building for the glory of God. I clean my house every day, even though the kids make it dirty, for the glory of God. Because Sarah's like, no, you don't. I was, well, I'm just, some of you might relate to that. What we do is for His glory. That is your purpose. And that is a through line in your entire life that will never, ever change. Wherever the Lord leads you, whatever season you find yourself in, there is deep meaning in it. When we get to the end of our days, and worship team, if you want to get ready to lead us through here, we have an opportunity now to prepare ourselves for the end of our days, when we have that time to reflect and look back. You know, we don't have to be like Solomon and look at all of the years that we've wasted. My friends, if we handle our time properly, if we understand the duty of man to fear God and keep His commandments, no matter the season, no matter the challenge, no matter the monotony, whatever it might be, if we fear God and keep His commandments, my friends, one day we'll get to the end of our lives, we'll reflect back, and we'll be filled with such immense gratitude for the time that He lent us, where we can see how the Lord used us to touch lives, to bless others, to simply do what He's asked us to do. I want to encourage you all tonight that your life has tremendous value. Tremendous value. The key of it all is to fear God and keep His commandments. What a simple answer to one of life's biggest questions. What is the point? To glorify Him. And it really is that simple. So I want to encourage you all tonight, whatever you're wrestling with, whatever season you find yourself in, however hopeless your life may seem right now, or futile, or maybe you can really relate to Solomon and you feel like you've been hammering your head against that wall, take a step back, look at your life, and allow the Lord tonight to encourage you in this season and remind you that He has you here right now for a very specific purpose. So, fear Him and keep His commandments and continue to do what He's asked you to do. And my friends, you will see the Lord do incredible things in your lives as you do. So would you stand with me?